Let me ask you, what do you feel like has been the biggest difference in what you all were doing correctly in those first 3 games versus what has happened in the last 2 games?
The global impact is you turn the ball over. We've had 5 turnovers in the last 2 games. It's not a recipe for success, and so those first couple games, obviously we fumbled the one in the opener on the 4th and 1, and then we threw the pick backed up against New Orleans. With the exception of the Houston game, we've had a turnover each game, but the last couple games they've been not necessarily crucial elements. Every turnover's crucial, but it's the execution element of it, and so that's what I think is the biggest difference. And it's not just the one time; it's a multiple times. So it's stopped drives, it's gotten us off the field, and it shifts the momentum towards the other thing. And fortunately, our defense has made stops on plays that we have turned it over. But that's the biggest thing: the execution. Got to cut the turnovers away.
Are there things, or what things can you do to improve the offensive efficiency when you're not getting the line play that you should be getting?
Well, I don't think it's anything. It's anything like drastic. I think we have to stay ahead of the chains, both in the run game and the pass game, and when you're playing off schedule, when you're in third and long distances. I don't think for any offense that's a recipe for success. Statistics always tell you if you're in 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 11s, it's not an easy down to convert no matter who you have. And so I think the biggest thing is us just staying on course, staying ahead of the chains, and taking the 4-yard runs, taking the 4-yard completions, and when the opportunity is there, obviously take the shots. But we just got to stay ahead of the chains and execute at a higher level.
I know you next man up mentality, and you got to go with who you got. But I mean, Christian's only been out there for 5.5 games since 20-something since you've been here. How has that just impacted your planning week to week that you just don't have any to count on that?
Look, I think it's I think when you come in after every game, there's always, hey, you don't know if this guy's going to play, you don't know how much this guy's going to be able to go, and so I think it's part of the profession that we have to be ready for everybody has to be ready, and we have to be ready for certain people not to be down, and you kind of know it's kind of the understanding that the same 11 week to week is not going to be there, and that's why you got to field a team. So, Christian being there, the games he hasn't been there, games he hasn't, it hasn't been anything where it's just like, where you're deflated or anything like that. I have confidence, and like I've said week to week, I feel like the running backs, when he hasn't been there, going back to last year, have made the most of their opportunities, and so I feel confident when those guys are in there. Obviously, when Christian's out there, he's a difference maker and whatnot, but it doesn't change your mindset and your mentality.
The fact that you plan to spend your whole offseason planning to have him and then don't, does that change a whole lot?
I do think there is a difference in how defenses naturally, are going to play you when 22's back there. That's not anything, at our current running backs. It's Christian McCaffrey is one of the elite players in the NFL. So, I do think there's something to it. But it's nothing where it's just like, oh man, we lost our whole offense because we had one guy. We have enough playmakers on this team that have to do a better job of getting the ball in their hands, and we have to execute at a higher level.
Robbie says he thought you guys should have had a couple more double moves, kind of stretch the field where they were sitting on those comebacks. Was his assessment on the mark?
I'm sorry, what was that last thing you said?
Was his assessment right?
Well, I think you can, I love, Robbie's an extremely smart wide receiver, so he feels things out there, and I love the communication in games when, I love it when players are communicating with me in games, and I think there's a fine line with it. But look, I think you can always turn on the tape and say, hey, you would have loved to make a double move there. You would have loved to do this. Sometimes there's double moves and the guys are playing deep, and you're wishing you would have take it off and whatnot. So I think it's a fine line with that. But no, I think at the end of the day, I think going back to last week, the execution just wasn't at a high level, and so whether we, had a couple more plays, a couple more double moves, I think when the plays were there, we didn't make enough of them, and so. But no, I wouldn't say he was wrong with the thought process, especially after the fact.
Issues with the recent issues with pass protection make it hard to do a lot downfield.
Well, I think you have to go into every game with, hey, what's it going to take to win this game? And so every game's different. The DBs are different week to week. The D line's different. Your matchups are different. So you can't just kind of show up on game day, show up on Mondays and say, hey, we're going to just take this plan and just do it the next week. You have to kind of, and we have to figure out our personnel and go from there and try to see where the matchups are for us. And so a week-to-week basis, it's like, hey, can we protect this? Yes, I feel confident we can protect it. Okay, hey, is their defense, are they taking the top? Are we going to be able to take the top off? Are they forcing you to have to take the underneath throws? So it's it's not a challenge each week, but it's something that you really have to look into to see, hey, are you putting your players in the best position to have success, both players and as an offense? And so it's just something that we look at each week, and again, it's different because you're playing different defenses. It's not something that like, hey, this is the blueprint of how this one team has played us. It's kind of, hey, week to week, whether you're able to push the ball deep or whether they're taking it, knowing how fast we have, and you're forcing you have to take the underneath throws and make people miss.
What might you have done differently last week to, I guess, have a better second half or even get a larger lead there in the first half?
Yeah, I mean, without getting into, again, always the schematics of it, I had to do a better job of getting the offense in a rhythm, and whether that's, again, staying ahead of the chains in the run game or just finding the next completion. It felt like, as the game was going, either we got behind the chains or when we were having, when we had a successful run, a penalty brought us back, or, we turned the ball over, and so I just got to do a better job of putting our players in better position to have success, and we have to execute at a higher level. But just getting a rhythm, I think we're doing best when we're moving the ball, we're in a rhythm, and we have to do a better job of not having negative plays, because it's hard when you have a negative play in the drive. It's always hard to rebound with it, and so that's I have to do a better job at that.
It seems like Sam's internal clock through the first 3 weeks seemed particularly sound for the most part. Last 2 weeks, he said he's been holding on to the ball more. What changes with that, and how do you get him out of that habit?
Look, I think it's he just has to just continue to play within the system and just just take the next completion. And I think he understands that mindset, and I think he has a great mentality right now about it of, hey, if it's there, I'm going to just take it. And if it's not there, I'm going to just work to the next one. He's not feeling the pass rush. He's not feeling that or anything like that. He's not seeing it. So I think it's just more of him just, hey, take the completion and kind of move on to the next one if it's not there.
With Chuba, what is he better at now than he was 3 weeks ago?
Well, I mean, I think, especially as a young player, but any player in the NFL, when you get in a rhythm, when you feel like, as a rookie necessarily too, he's showing that he can run the football in the NFL. And I think sometimes it takes a feel of understanding that, hey, that hole that might have been there at Oklahoma State, when you're running it, and that's not a knock in the Big 12, but that hole that I might have had there, I can run through. When the NFL, that closes real fast. And so just seeing and understand of, the margin for error is a lot smaller at this at this level, but it's showing him that, hey, he can run with his pads down. I have vision, I can do those things, and so it's just building upon his confidence. So it's not anything that he's done more of, or that he's shown that, hey, he's did this and I didn't think he can do it. It's just more of him just getting more confident because he's getting the reps.
When Christian comes back, does that change the way you think about his role and the role of the running back in general?
Yeah, I think we have the mindset when we prepare that room for all of them to be ready to go, and so when Christian's here. Chuba's obviously going to have to be ready. Royce is going to have to be ready this week. And so while those guys are out there, but it's not anything where we're looking at it and saying, hey, this guy can't do this guy can't do that. We feel confident in those running backs. And, when Christian's there, those guys are going to have to be ready to continue to have the role that they're having.
In terms of, I was thinking more in terms of more reps for one than the other. I mean, as opposed to a lead backup. Does that margin shrink a little bit based on anything you've seen?
I think that's something as you develop the game plans and whatnot, you think about those things. Sometimes it's hard to give a clear-cut number, as games are going, especially in situations, but I think they've shown that, hey, they can play and they can play at a high level. And so, we got to make sure that, when Christian's there, that those guys are obviously getting reps as well.
How's Christian looked in practice this week?
It's Christian. I know I say that every time you guys ask me, but whenever he is out there, there is a boost to us. He does. You feel him when he's out there, and so we'll see come Sunday. But anytime he's got his shoulder pads on, it's always a good thing.
Can you notice a difference in a limited Christian versus a full Christian?
I think one thing when you see Christian McCaffrey, he's like a 100% at all times kind of guy. He's an all or not, so I don't think you look at him and sit there and say, hey, there's a big difference. His limited is a lot better than a lot of people's 100. So, so we'll see come Sunday if he has the opportunity.
Some of the third quarter stuff dates to last year. I mean, have you guys done much in the way of self-scouting and, even sort of like the mechanisms of how y'all handle halftime and get down from the press box? Yeah,
no, I think anytime you're having a lull in a specific category, you always kind of got to look back and, to your point, self-scout it. We've had games this year where we come out of half, move the ball, then we stalled and missed a field goal, and we got to continue that drive. So we've had when we scored. Obviously last week we didn't have a good drive, and so. I think it's always something, you try not to make it a bigger deal than it is. I think it's more of a mindset, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean it as we come into half times as opposed to focusing on, hey, it's all about this third quarter. We need to have the same mindset we do when we start the game. It needs to be like, hey, it's a 0-0 mindset. Hey, this is what's been happening. This is what we got to get to, as opposed to, it's all about the third quarter. We're making it not a bigger deal, but every drive is important in the NFL. That first drive to start the second half is just as important as that first drive to start the second quarter. And so obviously understanding that we have to do a better job in the third quarter, we have to do a better job of the second half, but also not making it where it's the most important thing.
Is the whole halftime adjustments thing and oversimplification mainly, how difficult is it to take, a half of football and then just completely, have to jump that plan or move on and try to do something else?
Well, I think, there's definitely halftime adjustments. You have to do stuff. You also have to trust your preparation throughout the week. You have, hey, if they do this, then this type things. Injuries happen, those things happen. There's not a long time at halftime, so some of the adjustments you're making at the end of a half or, as things are going. But throughout the game, you're always constantly communicating, figuring out, hey, what can we get to? You're not just sitting there, enjoying the halftime. But it is not a long time, and it's more of, hey, what are we going to get to? What's our thought process, for the second half and how we're going to approach it and kind of go from there.
Are you also trying to predict, Joe, what their adjustments are going to be?
Yeah, no, look, they're coaches as well, right? So, I think they're not going to just line up and run the exact same things that they did in the first half and whatnot. And same thing, they're not going to say, hey, this is what we did and we had success. And we have to have that same mindset. And so that's the chess game as coaches. And so throughout the game planning process, you're always thinking of, hey, what are their get-tos, what are their next go-tos and stuff like that. And, there's times where obviously you come off the field and it's like, hey, they got that one. And there's times where you feel like, okay, we got an exact matchup we wanted and had success. And so that's the constant, it's the fun thing with the chess as coaches. At the end of the day, I have to do a better job when we turn the ball over, and we have to execute at a higher level on offense to continue to put the ball in the end zone.
New Orleans, did you ever have to help game plan to face Stephon Gilmore?
It's a great question. I don't believe so. I don't believe I was there with that, but obviously I've seen a lot of tape of him, and so I'm sure when he was out there, teams were playing him. He's Defensive Player of the Year 2 years ago, so I guess it's a good thing I wasn't having to, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Coach.
I appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Joe.